Hi everybody, Dana Sparks, broker of Maximum One Greater Atlanta Realtors, and today's contract tip has to do with agent-to-agent communication. So you have heard me mention in previous videos that agent-to-agent communication has no bearing on the contract regarding binding parties to terms. In other words, an agent sending an email to another agent regarding what their client said they would or would not do with respect to negotiations on a contract does not bind those parties to terms. And that is spelled out actually in the purchase and sale agreement under the paragraph C, other terms, and that is under C I. C4I, no authority to bind. No broker or affiliated licensee of the broker by virtue of this status shall have any authority to bind any party hereto to any contract, provisions herein, amendments hereto, or termination thereof. So when you sign, when you are emailing a co-op agent, when you're sending a text message, when you're on a phone call, whatever you say with respect to the contract does not bind the parties. That is just merely to facilitate communication, but it has, again, I can't say it enough, has no bearing on the contract. But here is the issue we seem to be facing. We are getting lots of complaints on both sides, on the seller side, on the listing side, from our agents, from co-op agents, on the lack of communication. And it is an issue when you are working on behalf of your customer or your client to try to get a contract binding between the buyer and the seller. And this is a very fast-paced, emotional market right now, and communication is of the utmost importance. But I just have a couple of tips. Number one, if you are reaching out to a co-op agent and you don't get a response back, number one, how quickly are you looking for a response back? I have gotten calls from co-op agents and some of our agents just saying, I've reached out to this agent, they're not getting back to me. And I'm like, well, how long ago did they reach out to you? Did you reach out to them? 10 minutes ago. Well, in a market where a seller is getting multiple offers, they might get back to you, but 10 minutes might be an unrealistic time frame if they just put the house on the market or whatever, with respect to whatever. So number one, you want to check out your time frames. What would be a realistic time frame? Number two, you want to follow up your communication. So if you are sending an email, you would want to follow up with a phone call saying, hey, I just sent you an offer or an amendment by email. Please check it. Let me know if you didn't get it. Vice versa, if you're sending a phone call, you want to follow up with an email. Texting. You guys, please, you can use text messages to facilitate things like showing or a text message, hey, I just sent you an email. But do not do business by text. Text is not binding. It is not considered in writing and will not hold up. So, for example, we had an issue where a client said they never got a copy of the contract. And the agent said, well, I sent them a copy via text. Did the client get the contract or not? Does that meet the terms of license law that the public gets a copy of everything they sign? So do not do business by text. You can text for communication, to facilitate communication, to add on to communication, but do not have that as your sole means of communication with respect to a contract, either between you and a co-op agent or you and a customer or client. Additionally, if you have a phone call, I highly suggest that you follow up a phone call with an email. So you have a phone call, which of course is wonderful, and everybody thinks that they're on the same page. Then what I want you to do is send an email stating, hey, just a follow-up to our phone call. The nature of our phone call was this, this, and this, and this. This is what's been agreed to. I just want to make sure that's what you understood. If you understood our phone call to be anything differently, please let me know via email. If I don't hear anything back from you, then we're on the same page as to what I have just outlined. Very important for you guys to do. Additionally, communication with your customers and clients. When you're first meeting them, you do want to find out what is their preferred communication method. Is it text? Is it phone? Is it email? And again, if it is phone or text, you absolutely want to protect yourself, and just for good customer service, and make sure everybody is on the same page, that you do follow up a text and a phone call with an email. Additionally, once you go under contract with a buyer and a seller, you want to make sure that everybody is on the same page regarding time frames. GAR has a great reminder of important dates in the document, in the contract. That's an awesome form to fill out. And you fill out the binding agreement date, when due diligence is up, when earnest money is due, when all the appraisal contingencies, financing contingencies are up, anything else pertinent to the contract. You fill all that out, send it to your client. You keep a copy of it. And I think it would be a great idea to also send it to your co-op agent and the closing attorney and the lender. If you are not using the GAR forms, then create one of your own, but create some sort of timeline for each transaction. Things that you don't want to do. If you are working with if you're prospecting a buyer or a seller, and let's say it's a seller and it's an expired listing, and then you go on the appointment, do not ever badmouth the agent that they just had listed, that had listed their property. You are going to put that public person in a position to defend the other agent who just did not sell their home. You have to remember, the public person, that public seller, did choose that agent at one point in time. For whatever reason, that agent did not sell the house. Could be the house was overpriced. Could be the agent didn't expose it properly. Who knows why it didn't sell? But nevertheless, if you badmouth an agent, even a buyer's agent, you have to remember that public person at one point did make the decision to choose that agent. So if you badmouth that agent, number one, it's extremely unprofessional. But number two, you will put your public person in a position of defending them, potentially because they did choose them. Number three, you never want to badmouth an agent to their broker. That's not the way to get things done. For example, or to themselves. You never want to tell them how bad of an agent they are. You never want to put in an email to another broker about their agent, if you are having communication problems with them, that you have never dealt with a more unprofessional agent in your career, or that when that agent can talk like an adult to a person to get in touch with you. Those kinds of words in an email typically are not going to make for a smooth, professional communication between the parties to try and get a transaction closed. If you are having communication issues with an agent, then the best thing to do would be to get in touch with your broker and get your broker to get in touch with their broker. But just a couple of issues, a couple of other things to do. If you do receive communication, please respond back. If you do receive an offer, please respond back to the agent that sent that offer and say, thank you so much, I've received your offer. The seller is evaluating and will get back to you within whatever time frame. But acknowledge that you have received the communication, even if your public buyer or seller hasn't had a chance to go through an offer, counteroffer, amendment, so forth and so on. Additionally, you listing agents, if you do get multiple offers, please go back to all the agents who represented clients with offers if your seller did not accept them, and let them know that the seller did see the offer and rejected it. And again, there are forms in the GAR forms and the RE forms, rejection of notice, or simply take the front page of the contract that the seller is not accepting, draw a diagonal line and write rejected, and have the seller sign it. Same thing for buyer with a counter offer. The same holds true with our lenders. We are having an enormous number of issues with lenders. I'm happy to say none of the ones that are affiliated with Maximum One. But there are some issues with lenders. Just generally speaking, you as an agent, you need to stay in touch with the lender and the closing attorney. Is the title search done? Are there any issues? The lender, for whatever reason, I'm having an issue right now with a lender who been under contract for a month, 30 days. We're scheduled to close tomorrow, I believe. And 2 days ago, the lender sent all the parties a notice that they can't source the earnest money. So they have to do an amendment to the contract. They have to release the earnest money from the contract. The buyer has to give the earnest money to somebody else to then give it back to them as a gift. Well, the seller's not real keen on releasing the earnest money because then if the buyer defaults, there's no money for liquidated damages. But my point is, with respect to communication, why on earth is the lender waiting until the week of closing and just now looking at the source of the earnest money? That's an issue, and we have late appraisals. And just so y'all know, I've done another contract tip on this. A buyer may not terminate and protect their earnest money on the appraisal contingency if the appraisal has never been done. That's not a protection for them. But we're having a lot of lenders not sending out appraisals and a request for an appraisal in a timely manner. So these communication issues extend you to your broker, you to the co-op agent, you to your clients and customers, you to the closing attorney, you to the lender, also you to the holder. I don't care who the holder of the earnest money is. I don't care if you represent the buyer or the seller. It is your responsibility as an agent in the transaction to follow up with the holder of the earnest money. Did you get the earnest money? Did you deposit the earnest money? Did you get the earnest money? Did you deposit the earnest money? So again, just a couple of tips on communication. Be professional. Remember that it is the buyer. Sometimes there can be miscommunication or less than professional communication between agents. But please remember that regardless of your perception or your opinion of the agent, your opinion of their communication style, that, we are still dealing with a public buyer and a public seller who have a house that they want to convey for money. So I hope this contract tip helped you out and gave you a couple of ideas. Thank you guys so much for watching. Dana Sparks, broker of Maximum One Greater Atlanta Realtors, satisfying your needs with service, innovation, and education.